Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, Ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow tech nerds. It's a great pleasure to be here with you. It's an exciting and energetic and vibrant atmosphere. It's very hard not to be excited, I think. And I congratulate Saudi Arabia on providing this platform for sharing knowledge and innovation, collaboration and learning. So I want to talk to you today about the idea of generative government. We'll begin our journey by focusing where we should, on the citizen. I will share with you some findings that I'm pleased to say will be released for the first time today at LEAP 23 from some recent research. And I'll go on to argue that we face an increasing threat, growing challenges, and the nature of those challenges are really undermined. Our systems of government are not really equipped to deal with those challenges. Think about it. Climate change and the energy transition to get to net zero, the aging population and the healthcare crisis, food and water security, homelessness, displaced peoples and refugees, geopolitical conflicts, cybersecurity, social media, polarization of democracy and social cohesion. Solving these challenges requires boldness of vision, requires innovation and creativity, requires lateral thinking. But the current paradigm of government, with its hierarchies and structures, with its bureaucracies, its processes, its committees, and its risk-averse culture, is ill-equipped to deal with the scale and the transversal and dynamic nature of these challenges. I pose to you that we need a new paradigm of government, a vision for government that's more suited to the challenges that we face, one powered by generative leaders and generative technology. To truly meet citizen needs and stay relevant, we need a government to rethink how it operates, how it attracts talent and nurtures people, how it maximizes the benefits of cutting-edge technology. So what is generative government? Well, I could have Googled it, but that would be very 2022. So I asked ChatGPT. And as you can see, in a matter of seconds, ChatGPT is able to generate quite a bit of content on a concept that I would argue is fairly new and pretty vague. It provides a pretty articulate and compelling definition of the two concepts that I just mentioned. It's a bit generic, but it's a decent starting point. At this point, I confess, I was tempted to let ChatGPT write the rest of this presentation. And maybe I did. I guess you'll never know. It's obviously easy to get swept up in this moment. ChatGPT set the internet ablaze in November with its apparent astounding capabilities, but also its quite amusing failures. Observers quickly predicted the end of homework and school essays, lamented the death of creativity and writing, and raised alarms again about the future of work, all of which are quite melodramatic and wrong. There are very legitimate questions about the ethical, moral, and other implications of these technologies and the opportunities they present and the role of government in regulation. But I'll come back to that. Before we go there, I want to go back to where we are today and explore some of the potential use cases of this technology in government. To do that, I'm pleased to be able to launch here today at LEAP 23 findings from new research soon to be published by the Centre for Digital Government. We run the most comprehensive, longest-running benchmarking survey of its kind. We interview 28,000 people in 40 countries, and as you can see on this slide, the results are quite positive for GCC countries. In our survey, we ask citizens how happy and satisfied they are with the digital government services that they receive. And countries in this region perform very well. You can see that Saudi Arabia, for example, is sitting at about 75% net satisfaction, well above the global average of 63%. Along with Qatar and UAE, Saudi Arabia is among the world leaders, like Estonia, the UK, and my home country of Australia. But it's clear that this region is a global leader. One can't be complacent. Citizen expectations of government are constantly increasing, often shaped by their experiences with the private sector and global tech leaders. We ask people, how good do you think government services should be? And in this region, 41% of them think they should be as good as the experiences they get from global technology natives. 38% think it should be as good as the best of the private sector organisations, and another 19% think their government services should be as good or better than global best practice. What does that mean? Well, it means things like one-stop shops and digital front doors, integrated service delivery and portals with end-to-end processes, similar to the ones we heard on Monday here about Omanua in Oman. It means universal digital identity and verifiable credentials. It means tell us once and ask once, as mentioned by the head of Sadaya here on Monday. Seamless life event journeys and navigation powered by digital agents, virtual assistants, or maybe even digital humans. And much higher levels of personalisation and proactivity. We delved into that issue, and the demand was even higher than we expected. Globally, 72% of citizens want services to be more personalised, using existing government data and even combined with third-party data with consent. Globally, 85% want proactive services without even having to ask for it, triggered automatically based on what they already know about you or your transaction or relationship history. Our ability to meet the needs of citizen expectations for personalisation and proactivity just got a massive boost with advancements in generative AI. Generative AI is a label that's used to describe a type of artificial intelligence that can be used to create new text, images, audio, computer code, synthetic data. The famous ChatGPT, of course, powered by OpenAI, is one example. DALL-E that generates images from text descriptions, MuseNet that writes new music. And in the last few days, we've seen the announcements by Microsoft with AI-powered Bing, and soon Google to launch Bard in the next few weeks. These large language algorithmic models emulate human-level output, learn quickly, and we're going to see this technology accelerate and mature dramatically over the next 12 months. There are some great examples out there of people using AI to create creative content like documentaries, using video and audio. ChatGPT has been impressive in its ability to explain and analyse complex ideas, a remarkable ability to automate highly compensated knowledge workers doing professional tasks like writing computer code, preparing legal documents, or even management consulting. It's effectively reducing the cost of producing content to zero. But with the promise, there are risks and limitations. While the outputs appear impressive, it lacks any concept of meaning. It doesn't actually understand what it's generating, and it can't determine whether it's true or not. Human interpretation, validation, and judgment are still very much required. The data that's used to train and inputs into AI models can be wrong. So it could be a classic case of garbage in, garbage out. The input data also reflects the real world bias and prejudices. And that can be dangerously and horrifically magnified and amplified at scale. And we don't have yet the ethical and regulatory frameworks to protect citizens from harm. There are ways to overcome this with the responsible AI, but while responsible AI principles offer a good starting point, those must be translated into action. And then finally, the impact on workforces will also be profound. Research shows that around 40% of the work that public servants and government workers do, things like data collection, analysis, and processing, can be automated. The good news is that the democratization of these technologies means that you don't have to be a software engineer or a computer programmer anymore to be able to engage with the machines. But we will need a credible plan for transitioning the current workforce to higher value and more meaningful activities. This implies a focus on reskilling and upskilling, or lifelong learning, or forever learning, as will.i.am said on this stage on Monday. History shows that the human dimension is the most critical part of digital transformation. At BCG, we refer to this as the 10-20-70 principle. 10% of the value is in the algorithms, notwithstanding how much attention we put on them. 20% is in the technology platforms, but 70% is about people, leadership, culture, and operating model. It seems almost heretical to talk about people at a tech conference, but I do want to spend a bit of time on these two key elements of platform operating models and generative leadership. What do we mean by platform operating models? Well, traditionally, organisations, and particularly in government, we've had hierarchical structures with many layers of management organised around specific functions or policy areas or portfolios like health, education, transport, defence, security, finance, and so on. And over time, to compensate on the limitations, we've added central functions, integrating functions, shared services to drive efficiencies across horizontally. But platform operating models shift from this very dominant vertical orientation to a much more horizontal, transversal one, recognising those complex challenges that I talked about earlier require much more cross-functional expertise. They bring together people from across departments, from across governments, from across functions with end-to-end responsibility focused on missions, solving real-world problems, or products and services. You tend to see a lot of these platform operating models in the digital natives and the tech companies, places like Alibaba and Spotify. But we're also starting to see them now in more traditional companies, places like ING and IKEA. The important thing is that these reconfigured teams, organised around missions, spend all of their time trying to solve problems rather than trying to work across the silos and up and down their hierarchies. A recent BCG study showed that 60% of company leaders see an urgent need to transform their operating model. Why? Because they want to drive and accelerate more digital innovation. Because they want their organisations to be more resilient. Because they want to win the war for talent. When organisations move to these platform operating models, they increase the rate of success by 4 to 6 times. The second part of the people dimension is this idea of generative leadership. BCG's leadership research has shown a long-term trend that calls on leaders to shift away from this mindset of extraction, of squeezing the best out of people in the organisation to drive results, to a much more generative approach, one that focuses on building capacity, building organisational resilience, building flexibility and the ability to respond and grow. Generative leaders balance 3 interconnected components. They lead with the head, they lead with the heart, and they lead with the hands. Generative leaders continuously reimagine and reinvent the way that organisations deliver value to their stakeholders. They think expansively about the role and the future they want to create, but they focus strategically on those priorities. They foster an open culture of fact-based discussion, of genuine feedback. They insist on having diversity and listening to diverse voices in the room. Leading with the heart means seeking to inspire people, to enrich the human experience by building great cultures and workplaces that allow people to be at their best. They care deeply for the physical, emotional, mental well-being of the people. They coach and they mentor across all levels of the organisation. And they lead with the hand. Generative leaders are all in. They're action-oriented. They're accountability-focused. They are open, curious, humble. They lead by example. They lean in and step up and have the courage to make tough choices. They encourage testing and learning and celebrate success and progress rather than perfection. The evidence shows the impact of generative leaders have on the organisation. Those leaders who energise, inspire, create a clear purpose and case for change are 2 to 3 times more likely to be successful. Senior leadership teams who are aligned and ensure employees understand why they need to change are 3 times more successful. And leaders who adopt those generative leadership behaviours increase their success by 1.5 times. It's clear that leaders who embrace this generative leadership model produce stronger results. So where does that leave us? What will this generative government look like? If we put it all together, what we have is an aligned and inspiring team, an aligned and inspiring leadership, cultivating and growing the best talent, working in a platform operating model, plumbed into and leveraging the power of AI and those emerging technologies in a responsible way, with focus on clear missions and solving those most pressing challenges. If generative AI is fundamentally about creating new content, finding new insights about our world, and generative leadership is about building people, capability, and organisations up, then I think a generative government will be one that creates a platform that enables and empowers its citizens, its businesses, its communities to learn, to work, to grow, and to thrive. Thank you.